Welcome to Success Story, the most useful podcast in the world. I'm your host, Scott D. Clary. The Success Story podcast is part of the Hubspot podcast network. The Hubspot podcast network has incredible podcasts for you to check out, like Remarkable People, hosted by Guy Kawasaki, of course, brought to you by the HubSpot podcast network. The Remarkable People podcast with Guy Kawasaki helps you better understand the changing world with interviews from thought leaders, legends, and iconoclasts. If you are interested in business, leadership, entrepreneurship, he interviews the best of the best, leveraging connections that he's built over his career. Here's some of the episodes and interviews that he's done. He's spoken to Seth Godin, marketing god, blogger, author. He's spoken to Pat Flynn, entrepreneur, power podcaster, and popular YouTuber. He's spoken to Jen Lim, happiness evangelist and author of Beyond Happiness. He's spoken to Steve Blank, author, entrepreneur, and startup whisperer. If you want to listen to incredibly intelligent conversations with some of the most remarkable people on the planet, listen to Remarkable People podcast by Guy Kawasaki, wherever you get your podcasts. Today, my guest is Jonathan Perelman, the president of ICM Stellar Sports. Now, ICM Partners is one of the world's leading talent agencies dedicated to the representation of artists, content creators, broadcasters, authors, journalists, and artisans. 2020, Perelman helped oversee ICM Partners' acquisition of the powerhouse London agency Stellar Group. They represent over 800 athletes. Before orchestrating the ICM Stellar Sports deal, Perelman served as ICM's head of digital ventures. He previously spent time at both Buzzfeed and Google as well. He was an early employee at both of those companies. Right now, he of course heads up ICM Stellar Sports and serves as a board member for several sports and entertainment startups. So we spoke about Perelman's career, how he went from Google and tech to Buzzfeed and media, and then eventually to ICM Partners and ICM Stellar Sports. He was an early employee at both Google and Buzzfeed, and he saw their growth from the ground up. So some great lessons there. We also spoke about what is digital, how can companies go digital, how some companies are doing it right, some companies aren't doing it right, how to grow your digital footprint as a brand. But then we also spoke about how to grow your digital footprint as a personal brand, some lessons that he's learned from managing athletes with huge social media followings, what to do to help grow their brand, their community, monetize their audience, all the things that you can test at scale when you're managing an athlete with millions of followers. So some great business lessons, some great personal brand, influencer, marketing lessons. Let's jump right into it. This is Jonathan Perelman, president of ICM Stellar Sports.
I'll start at the beginning. I'm a Pisces. I am in fact a Pisces. I grew up in Connecticut. Went to probably most relevant to start in college, where even before college, I was sort of active in a number of things, especially politically. That was where the conversations around the dinner table. And when I went to college, I studied political science. I got an opportunity, well, first to intern over the summer for a local city councilman in Newark, New Jersey. I was in college in Philadelphia and worked for the city councilman who my then girlfriend, now wife, introduced me to, and super impressive guy. He said he was going to run for mayor of Newark, and would I like to join his campaign? And I said, well, in college in Philadelphia, it's not a far train ride. I could maybe do my classes during the week and condense my schedule. To which he said, no, I mean actually take a leave of absence from college and come work on my campaign. And I had interned for a member of parliament previously in the UK, and I love the idea, but I said, I don't think you can do that. I don't think you can take a leave of absence from college. He's like, no, you can. You go to the registrar and just say you want to take a leave. And okay. And so I did. So I moved to Newark, New Jersey with half a college education and worked for a guy who was a city councilman running for mayor, someone named Cory Booker, who's now a U.S. senator. So all's well that ends well. But we lost that election. We lost that campaign for mayor. And I believe in instances when you lose, you often learn more than when you win. And it was an incredible experience for me to be involved at such a level at such a young age. I think we really tried and wanted to have a big impact on the people of the city. And it was not where I'm from. I'm from Connecticut. I was in New Jersey, but I felt this connection and loved the process. And it was a really, really meaningful time, I'll say, in my career as a young person to get that experience. And I treasure it. We're still close to this day. But the things I learned on that campaign, I've taken with me in every step along the way. I promised and I should say there was a Academy Award nominated documentary that followed that campaign called Street Fight.
Really?
So I do.
Oh,
There
very
was.
cool.
It's a great watch. I allow myself once a year to watch it. It's a tearjerker for me. It brings back all these emotions. But Marshall Curry directed it. It's an unbelievable film and really insight into urban politics in America in that year almost that I spent half a year working on the campaign. So that was incredibly meaningful experience that I had, and went back to college. I promised my parents I would go back to college and get my degree, which I did. I then went into financial services for a couple of years, and great experience, but I realized I wanted something more entrepreneurial. So I had actually, in the interim, gotten married and met somebody. A joke. I met someone on on my honeymoon, and he still is a unbelievable guy, a very very big job at Google at the time. And we talked about careers. We talked about what I was doing. He, a little bit older than I am, had more experience, had children. I did not at the time, but we talked about careers and the advancement. And I went to him for advice, which is something I like to do a lot. I like to go to people, seek their advice, ask a lot of questions. And I said to him, I'm looking to make a move. What do you suggest? And he said, well, why don't you come look at Google? I said, it's not something I had considered. This was 2005, 2006. And lo and behold, I went to Google. I took a job at Google. And it was, again, one of those really transformational experiences starting at Google. This was in New York. It was, it was in a, not tiny, but a smallish office in Midtown Manhattan, couple hundred people in New York. Felt like I knew not all of them, but most of them. You'd see people around. 6, 7 years later, when I left, having done a couple different jobs, there were thousands of people in the office. You wouldn't go to lunch, you wouldn't recognize anyone. So it was a fun time to be there, to experience the growth. I went from a very internally facing role to an externally facing role, which I felt suited my skill sets very well. Google was, I assume still is, still some friends there, which I think is indicative of how great of a place to work it is and how much you learn. But for me, I had a little bit of an entrepreneurial itch that I wanted to scratch. I used to joke at Google that if I was gone for 6 months, if I just didn't come into the office, people might wonder where I was because I'm a little bit loud and boisterous, but it wouldn't really matter to the business at all. And that was certainly an indication of the work I was doing, maybe the level I was at, but I wanted to have more of an impact. And I went again to seek advice from somebody who I had worked with at Google, who was at Buzzfeed at the time, and just got coffee just to say, hey, it's been 6, 7 years. I'm looking for something different. What do you suggest? What do you know? And I left with a job offer to go to Buzzfeed, which was not my
after one coffee.
after one coffee. He's a very persuasive guy. It was not my intention, but it seemed like a great opportunity. And there were about 100, 115 employees. It was still pretty young and new. And I took the jump and took a leap.
Wow.
It was quite a thing to try and explain to people leaving Google, where everybody had heard of Google. They knew what a great place it was to work, to go to to buzz what? To feed what? Is it, people just didn't know what it was. And I certainly believed in the business. That's why I did it. But I realized I wanted to stay as much ahead of the curve as I possibly could. And what I realized was that Google was this amazing platform. I called them the tracks that they had laid that carried the content of the internet, the trains on it. And I thought I wanted to be on the trains. I wanted to be the content and to see how that works. And went to BuzzFeed, which was really, I mean, it wasn't entrepreneurial in the sense that we weren't two guys in a garage tinkering, but it was 100 people in a, in a 6-story, not a walk up, but in an office that was cramped, trying to figure out how content worked on the internet. And that was fun. And we tried a lot on the business side. We convinced advertisers and partners to come on board into something that they didn't know about and had a lot of questions. It was some time into that experience that they asked if I would move to Los Angeles from New York to help open what was called at the time BuzzFeed Motion Pictures, after raising money from venture capital, wanted to really do this very early pivot to video that was at the time. And I had a young family from the East Coast, loved and still love New York, but was ready for a different challenge. And so we packed up the wagon and headed out west, and learned a ton in that experience about how to manage groups of people, how to start something, and how not to be afraid to just make decisions, because I wouldn't say we all knew what we were doing at the time. We just had to analyze something and make a decision. And we did, and built it into something I think we could all be proud of. I was interested in transitioning it into other elements of the entertainment business. And that's when I went around Hollywood, to start asking lots of questions of people, from agents, managers, lawyers, studios. Really, how does the business operate? And it became clear, I'm now trying to go back, this was probably 2015, 14, 15, 16, something like that digital was still new in Hollywood. It was a thing. It wasn't, at one point, it was new media. Now it was called digital, whatever it was, but there was still a lot unknown. And that's what I liked about it, is that there was no answer. There was nothing easy. There was nothing specific. There was not an element of plug and play. There was a lot of experimentation, and I liked that. And so I had been connected to somebody, to the CEO, the guy who ran ICM Partners at the time, and we got together a bunch and talked about what digital looked like within the confines, the entity of a Hollywood agency. And I was interested in the opportunity and the challenge of going inside an agency, which are pretty traditional places. They can be very entrepreneurial if done well, but to do something like digital, and the people that had done it before me, still my friends today, but there was not a clear path. That was not an easy transition. But I made a deal with the company, and I said, here's the thing. I don't think an agency should have a digital department. I think every department should be digital. Doesn't make sense to think about it differently. It should be just part of what every group does at the agency. So I said, give me a couple of years to try and integrate this. And if I'm successful, you'll have to find me another job, either within the company or within Hollywood. And if I'm unsuccessful, you'll have to find me another job within the agency or within Hollywood. I said, this is not a forever project. This is a finite, we are going to integrate this into the rest of the business. You need subject matter expertise, and you need to have the right contacts, and sure, you need all of that. But everybody should know this digital thing. Never liked the nomenclature because it connoted something different. Well, it wasn't different. It was just a new way of having a product, if it's film, if it's TV, some sort of entertainment, come across. So I did this. It didn't take me 3 years to probably fail at the job, but I realized along the way that there were other aspects that I thought the company should be doing. One was a speakers bureau. We talked a little bit earlier about when I went on the speaking tour, and I thought that's something that the agency should be doing more of. And to his credit, the CEO said, "Okay, great idea. Go make it happen. What do you want to do?" And I love that about him and about the environment that I was in, which is if you have a good idea and you can prove the thesis, you have the ability to go make it happen. And so bought a small agency, and as I joke for my sins, he then said, "Well, now you have to go run it." So I ran that, and I think one of the most important elements of what I've been able to do is find people far better than I to go to hire to go run certain things. And so I found an amazing person who to this day still runs that business, who's phenomenal. Just, I think, a great leader of the business and an even greater person. And so transitioned from there to do corporate development type of stuff and raised a bunch of money from private equity, and ultimately spun that with into getting into the sports business. So after raising money from private equity, identified an asset in sports based in the UK that we were able to acquire. And again, as a thank you, I got to run it.
Chance to run it.
Yeah, which I'm doing now, and I absolutely love it. And sort of to cap this off, I'll say, in the businesses that certainly I'm in now, but that I've been in recently, it's a people business, right? It's professional services, and it's really just about the people. And I have been so incredibly lucky to work with and for really great people and have great partners along the way that make the work that can be difficult and challenging fun and exciting. So it's really and it's been about, for me, finding myself with and around really great people, and I've been really lucky to have that.
I just want to take a second and thank the sponsor of today's episode, Netsuite. Now picture this. This is it. The putt to win the tournament. If you sink it, the championship is yours. But on your backswing, your hat falls over your eyes. Is this how you're running your business? Poor visibility into what's actually happening because you're relying on spreadsheets and outdated finance software? To see the full picture, you need to upgrade to Netsuite by Oracle. If you are a business owner, you need visibility into what's happening in your business. Netsuite gives you that visibility. It gives you visibility over your financials, your inventory, HR, planning, budgeting, and more. Netsuite is everything you need to have visibility, to have control, and most importantly, to grow all in one place. With Netsuite, you can automate your process and close your books in no time while staying well ahead of your competition. 93% of surveyed businesses increased both their visibility into what was going on as well as their control after they switched and upgraded to NetSuite. Remember, NetSuite is rated the #1 cloud financial system to power your growth. And over 27,000 businesses already use NetSuite. And right now, through to the end of the year, NetSuite is offering a one-of-a-kind financing program to those ready to upgrade at netsuite.com/Scott Clary. So if you want to take advantage, head to netsuite.com/Scott Clary for a special end of the year financing on the #1 financial system for growing businesses. That is netsuite.com/Scott Clary. Amazing. I love the progression, and I'm glad you unpacked it, because when I was first looking at who you are as a person and what you've done, I wanted to walk through that career because you've gone into different industries per se, but there's sort of a thread that follows you between all of them. And I think that it's probably I want to unpack what you do at Stellar Sports with sporting teams and athletes and professionals. But you focus on this overarching theme of turning a business and making an entire business digital and making an entire and describe what that is, because that was something that you were discussing at Buzzfeed that you carried over into ICM. Does digital mean media company? What is digital? What is the definition of digital for a company?
Well, Scott, I think that's the issue, is that digital can
Yeah.
mean different things to different people, to different companies, to different entities. I I really think, I mean, there are super tactical approaches to what it means. We are speaking on digital platforms right
Yes.
now, right?
Yep.
People are listening to us on a digital platform. But you take some of the giant streaming services of today, is that digital or is that television? Well, yes, both. I mean, I don't know. It comes
Yes to
in through
both.
one,
Yes to both. Yeah.
yeah, exactly. It comes through one pipe or another. What difference does it make? And I think that's been one of the misnomers about digital, is that people want to put it into some box and say it's something else. It's not. I don't know. That's why I was very intentional with this idea of, doesn't make sense to have a digital department. Every department should be digital. Now, there's a maturation of that. You don't start one day and say, okay, everything's digital. Let's retool everything. But today, it must be part of whatever you do. Whatever, if you sell a product, if you make a product, if you service a product, whatever, understanding how people communicate, understanding how people buy, how people sell, how people interact and transact. It's so important. And it could be very old fashioned, very new, whether it's digital or terrestrial. I don't think it matters. I really think about digital almost as a mindset, this nimbleness, this idea that there is so much change happening so quickly. How do you stay in front of it and be nimble to adapt to whatever comes next? That's not a product necessarily, that's a mindset. And that's how I think about digital.
Amazing. So, okay, so this is something that, and I completely agree that digital has to be a mindset. I guess other buzzwords that you probably would have heard would be like digital transformation, you're right. It's not just one thing. It's not one aspect of the business. It's quite literally everything that you do. I love how you actually. I don't want to re-describe it. The way you described it was perfect. So with ICM Stellar Sports, first let's tee up what you're actually doing there, and then let's speak about some of the high level lessons that you implemented across your career that you're implementing at ICM, and some things that people can think of as they try and sort of modernize or digitally transform their business so they keep up with marketing habits, sales habits, what their customers care about, how they're, like you said, how their customers communicate. I think those are very important things. And I think that's why you've been so successful in what would look like, without talking to you or speaking to you first, a whole bunch of different industries and different types of jobs. Because you've gone Google, that's Fang, that's tech, and you've done BuzzFeed, that's media, like it's a true like digital media company. Now you're at a sports talent agency, right? But you've done similar things across all of them. So yes, let's go into it. So Stellar Sports, what do you do there?
Yeah, well, let me first pick up on one thing before I get into that. Is, this podcast has success in the title. We think about success. I was talking to a very close friend of mine who's in the sports business, and we often talk about this success. I guess objectively, sure, I am successful on some level, but I think part of the reason that I don't know that I'm successful, I always struggle with that and always work harder to become successful, but it feels elusive to me what success is. And so it motivates and drives me every day to find that thing. I don't think I have found it. I don't know that it is something that will be found, but having the desire and the motivation and the purpose to look for that thing that is success is kind of what drives me. What do I
I
do
would
every
actually say
day?
one thing
Yeah.
on that point though. If that mindset you just described is the exact mindset that a business has to have when they think about how do we stay up to date? How do we future proof? How do we digitally transform? It's the mindset that you will never achieve the you will never perfect your organization. You will never be the most relevant. But the mindset of always trying to do that is like quite literally what you said on a personal level. That's how businesses have to think.
I, that's right. I don't know today, I'll say there's no end game, right? You don't get to a
Yeah.
point where you say, I have conquered it all. I'm done. What do? You close up shop? No, you gotta keep going. So that's right. I think about that from a personal perspective, but also from a business perspective. How are we always striving to be better at what we do, but it's never done, right? In the minute,
Yeah.
I think you think that you are, there's a belief that you are, your competitors have ridden right by
That's
you.
that's
So
that's what. Yeah, that's a start of the a slow death. Like that's when you start. That's the well, look at like the I use this analogy so much, but like the blockbusters or the taxi or cab industry or the hotel industry to the Airbnb, like that's what
yeah, and
happens when you think.
like Innovator's Dilemma I've read, like a lot, like there are all these books, these management books that I love to read, and it's all kind of a play on the same thing. It's like right when you think you
Yeah,
got it, that's when you got to put the pedal down. And
yeah,
always, I've tried to see around corners. It's really hard to do, but you've got to continue to evolve all the time, even when you
yeah.
think you've nailed something, because there's something else that will come around the corner. So ICM Stellar Sports, what do I do? I'm the president of ICM Stellar Sports. That means I just help an absolutely first class, best in class team of agents and scouts and executives look after and represent the best sporting talent in the world. The majority of our business is football. Almost all of our business is football. That is both sides of the pond, European soccer football and NFL, American football, where we look after the careers of the best athletes in the world. And so it means slightly different things if we talk about NFL as opposed to European soccer, but ultimately it's the same thing, right? We work with amazing talent, get them and find them the right deals both on the pitch and off the pitch to ensure that they're in the best possible place for their career, for longevity um, in the game, as well as helping them build brands and monetize that off the field. So it's my job specifically is to help run the business of the business. I have very strong opinions on who should be transferred where, what kind of offense our quarterback should be running, but that's not why they pay me. They pay me to help think about how to run the business as operationally best we can, as well as really thinking about growth and where the opportunities are and how we can grow the business that we have into something even bigger. And that's the fun part. I'm incredibly lucky to work with just the best people in the business, which makes it a lot of fun. And I think, frankly, just makes me look good from time to time. And we're in a business that people like. I mean, there's literally Monday morning quarterbacking is talking about the business that I'm in, which means there's a lot of scrutiny, there's a lot of pressure, but I like that. And if I can do my little bit to help make us the best in the business, that's what I do.
So let's talk about some of the things that you do that you've implemented at Stellar Sports. Now, do you want to do it? We could do one of two things. We can talk about the strategies that maybe you use for athletes in terms of how to grow their brand, or we can talk about some strategies that maybe you've picked up from Buzzfeed that you've used to grow the digital footprint of Stellar. So I don't know which way you want to take it. It's up to you. So I just want to take a second and thank the sponsor of today's episode, HubSpot. Now, with the holidays in full swing, we're that much closer to a new year, which means New Year's resolution. And we often focus on what we feel we failed at: health, relationship, finances. But what if we tried something new this new year? And instead of acknowledging what we failed at, let's acknowledge what we did right, the things we want to continue doing more of, the relationships we want to show appreciation for. And what if we did that for our businesses? HubSpot is challenging businesses to focus on how to grow better, starting with our customers, because the HubSpot CRM platform is dedicated to making the connection between you and your customers better than ever. How? Well, new tools like native payment links and recurring payments that directly embed in HubSpot's quoting tools and emails means seamless delivery and payment collection. And custom surveys easily capture feedback unique to your business, share insights with your teams, and help you understand what makes your customers tick. Learn more about how HubSpot's CRM platform can help build, maintain, and grow your customer relationships at HubSpot.com.
Well, I think they kind of combine, because what I'll say is, well, first of all, the digital brand of, so we're not a public facing company. We are a
Of course, yeah.
B2B company, not a B2C company. But we have people that help our clients on social and digital platforms. These people that do the work are amazing. I mean, they do stuff I never even dream of from a content perspective, and help really grow the brands of our clients. And they've got strategies. They know how to do it. They know how to capture moments. They know this planned spontaneity of when something's going to happen. They just do really incredible work, and all credit to them. I would never in a million years try and teach them a thing or two about how to make it work. We do have philosophical conversations about social media, the web, content, the good side of it, which there's plenty of good, and the bad side of it, which there is plenty of bad. And especially some of our clients in European football, there's been a lot of stuff that's been done on social media that's, I mean, by any objective measure, not okay. I mean, the racism and other aspects is abhorrent, and you know, I can't be condemned strongly enough. But there's also the other coin a lot, right? You can tell your stories in new ways, and athletes have the ability to build brands today that they've really never had before. And so our first job, first and foremost, is always to look after them with contracts and what's happening on the field, to make sure that they are set up in the best possible position for success. And then we help build their brands and do some deals off the field, which is important for them to continue to grow and be seen almost as influencers. And that's another term, another, you know, if you use it as a verb, I guess, that I question. You know, an influencer, sure, there are professional influencers, and then there's the person, your friend or your parent or your colleague, who can also be an influencer in decisions that you make. Professional athletes hold a very special place for that influence, because they are icons and people look up to them. And I think there's a measure of that we need to be cognizant of when doing commercial deals, or, you know, things that they say from a social, political sort of world moment that really matter, because it resonates, because athletes are seen and held in a slightly different light, for better or worse. You know, whether or not people think they are role models, people do look up to them, and they are influential in decisions that people make. And then, Scott, if I could, I think what I had learned from sort of very short career in politics to tech to digital media is it's not one thing in particular, but it's this idea of adaptation, of agility, of not standing still, right? Those are industries that are constantly evolving and constantly changing, and you've got to keep up with what's happening. And that's how I've approached what I'm doing now is let's look for best practices, but let's never rest on what we have, and how do we ensure we've got the best people doing the best work possible. It's a people business at the end of the day, and we've got to find and retain and keep happy the best people. That's hard. That takes up a lot of time, but is probably the most important thing that we could do, because without the people, we don't have a business, right? We
So
don't make a product.
no, I appreciate that, and you are dealing with, okay, so you've always been working in organizations and been successful at, like you said, staying ahead of the curve. So how do you find people that are on that same wavelength? Because every business in the world would want to find people that can keep up with trends. At ICM, you're dealing with athletes, and they're massively exposed. Even at previous role, like, at Buzzfeed, you're putting out content all the time, trying to find what's relevant. There's always things that are in the public eye, which makes it even harder to find. Anything you screw up, everybody sees. Well, even more so in politics. Like, you've never worked in a low exposure industry where the stuff that you're putting out into the world isn't scrutinized. You've like
Yeah.
so tell me, how do you find people that can keep up with that pace, that can like at ICM, what even your hiring, your strategy, what do you look for in people that you bring on?
Oh, I can't tell you that, Scott. That's a secret. No, I'm just kidding. I never thought about the high exposure. Uh, I don't think there's a. It's the right question to ask, and I talk to people about this all the time. I don't have a great answer for it. You've got to you got to dig and find the right people. I'm a believer in it's about the people or the person, not necessarily the experience. So someone
Hmm.
could come with the perfect resume, but if I don't think it's a cultural fit, if I think they're going to come in and be a bull in a china shop and mess up what we have, if I think, yeah, they're great, but they're not going to speak up when they see something that they don't think is right, it's not going to work. And so, do we? It's about the right. It's people more than
Then
product. People more than the
yeah.
experience. And listen, this is me personally, and I think this is makes for great people that you work with, and for a great environment. But I like to say I'm an expert in not, and this is a famous quote, but an expert in nothing but passionately curious about everything. I you could have someone that is the best at this one thing, but I want well-rounded people. I want to have a well-rounded team. I want to work with people that have interests, outside of the stuff that they do every day. That could be their main interest. I'm in sports. I love sports. The business of sports is what I read, is what I want to do. I'm happy to work 7 days a week. My family doesn't always love that, but I'm
The point is, you're passionate
I'm
about it.
I'm passionate about it. I'm passionate about it, but there are other things that I do that are outside, and I think finding those kinds of people that are well rounded, and there used to be all these sayings when I was at at Google about finding Googlers, right? Do they pass some sort of test? Would you want to sit next to them on a cross country flight? Would that work? All that kind of. I mean, it might be silly and not scientific, but I think it's really, really important. And at the end of the day, that's how you find the best people. That's how you get the best, deliver the best output, is by having good, honest debate, and not having people that always agree with you, but coming up, and in that madness, in that chaos, in that debate is where I think you create the best product, the best outcome. And so, um, it's an imperfect science, but one that is really important. It's a bit, in my business, it's about the people.
You have even gotten all of your career advancements, next jobs. You're not going on Indeed and LinkedIn and applying for these things. This is entirely who you know. And that's interesting as well.
Yeah,
'Cause that's
that
also, you know?
well, that's true, Scott. That also worries me, right? Because if there could be a great person who is for the best job to work and help us grow the business. But if they don't know the right person, are we going to miss them? I get concerned about that. That is, in fact, you're right, how I've gotten to the point. Not sure success, but it's elusive, but I'm looking for that success.
You've still done well by any standard throughout your career, and it's all been handshakes with the right people. That's not a bad thing by any means, by the way. It's just it's a point that you're right. You could be missing out on good people, but it's also another point to people that aren't getting into the right rooms or talking to the right people or networking. Maybe you do more of that.
Here's what I'll say, Scott. I think that's right. The challenge is that can only take you so far, though. They could say, oh, wow, you're great. Come on to our organization and do this stuff. But if you can't perform, if you can't give something back that is good, you're not going to last very long. And so I totally agree. It is important to put yourself out there. I don't know how people necessarily network in a COVID world, in a just post kind of ish COVID world, maybe not quite yet. We talked earlier about travel that we've done and starting to do more, and how out of practice we were. But yeah, it's important to put yourself out there. It's important to meet people. And I get a lot of young people asking me for advice in their careers, and that's one of the biggest things I say is, go meet somebody and go talk to them. And just as you're doing, as your podcasts do, right? People are always pretty much happy to talk about themselves and their career and what they've done. And when you find someone that you connect with, maintain that relationship, follow up, keep going back, ask them questions. I think the idea of mentors and mentees that's one of the things that I think people talk about, but we don't do enough of. And it's really important when people look to make moves and grow their career, but also I don't have the answers to everything. And there are times I just want to call somebody and ask them for advice. And I do that with peers. I do that increasingly with people younger than I am, not necessarily just an age thing, but people that are maybe at slightly different levels, because I want to know how they're thinking about things. And I'll ask people that have been out of business for years how they dealt with some of these challenges or some of these questions. And for me, that's how I've always learned and grown and developed, is it's really important to be a very good listener. You got to know the right questions to ask, but when you do, listen to what the answers are.
How do you find people to ask questions, or how do you find your mentors rather?
I mean, I don't have a playbook for it. It's people that I come into contact with through business, through life. And, I have to respect the work that they've done, how they've done it, and ask them questions. And, these things kind of build organically. I think a lot of this stuff can't be forced. And if you do force it, it never really works out. But I've got tens, dozens of rabbis that I go to for different things, different people for different things, to ask questions and seek advice. And I think when you think you have all the answers, that's a sign that you definitely don't.
You mentioned something before, and you just said you don't have the playbook for it, but you mentioned something before we even started recording. You said, what's common sense to you may not be common sense to everyone else. And what I wanted to drive home there is, regardless of what what you're looking for to learn from in your life, have a mentor for different parts of your life. But also, again, I think it comes back to the relationship thing. You're not, for example, looking at a mentor as a transactional thing. This is not like send an email, get a piece of advice. You're building the relationships probably far before you actually need that advice. So when you do have a question about something, you have that network to reach into and to access and to tap into. And I think that people look at mentorship the wrong way, and they think about it like, okay, so I am going to reach out to somebody and I'm going to say, hey, can you be my mentor? And I'm going to ask them for 1 hour every single week. And that's how I do mentorship. And I don't think that's right. And I think that's unfortunately the way that people look at mentors, that it has to be some transactional relationship. But it can be, like you said, rabbi, friends, family, peers, anyone, and just ask for help. And that's mentorship. I just want to take a second and thank the sponsor of today's episode, Playbook. Now, what is Playbook? Playbook is an app that gets to know your unique financial situation and helps you get the most out of every dollar you save. The best part, you don't have to do any crazy budgeting or change a single thing about your lifestyle. So if you're just making money, but you're not sure what to do with it, Playbook is the app for you. For the average user, Playbook helps boost their net worth by over $1.3 million. Playbook tells you which tax advantaged accounts that you need, how much money to put into each one of them, and automates all of these investment processes for you. It's rare that you find a finance app that thinks about your finances as a whole. This includes your taxes, your savings, and your life goals. It was super simple to set up. I just set up all my accounts, and then I set my preferences as to where I want to put my money, and then it's on autopilot. So I can be investing in my Roth IRA and my travel fund, or my new car fund, or my wedding fund, or my kids' education fund, all in one spot. And on top of that, because it can forecast where I'm going to be in 10, 20, 30 years, I know exactly how much money I'm going to have when I do want to retire, or when I'm going to actually hit those milestones in my life financially, because I've set up these automatic contributions. So if you want to get on the road to financial freedom, go to helloplaybook.com/Scott. You can immediately predict when you can finally stop working. You don't even have to sign up for the service yet. You get a free Playbook Impact that's going to predict your net worth if you follow the guidelines that they set out for you. So remember, go to helloplaybook.com/Scott. That's your special link for a free assessment and basically roadmap for your future net worth. Sign up for Playbook today so you can enjoy financial freedom and beyond.
Yeah, I got a call this earlier this week from somebody who I used to work with. I haven't spoken to her in probably 3 years. And the reason I know that is because I didn't know she had a baby. But she said, I'm thinking
So
of making a
it's
move.
been a minute.
It's been a minute. She said, I'm thinking of making a move, a career move. You've always been helpful in helping me think through this stuff. Can I pick your brain about it? I mean, it had been years. With COVID, my time frame has just, it's all sorts of messed up, but it had been years. And yeah, I think, if we had had a solely transactional relationship over that time, it would have failed. It would just not have been something. But she could easily pick up the phone and text or call and say, hey, can I just pick your brain on this move I'm thinking of making, and how would you think about it? And had a really nice chat. And we might not talk for another 2 or 3 years, and that's okay. She's wonderful, and I wish her all sorts of success. But I think we think about it, you articulated this well, but we think about it as such a transactional thing about when are we meeting, how are we doing this?
Yeah.
And sure, maybe you have some of those, but you should have lots of different kinds of relationships with people who can be helpful. I mean, I remember a time when I was at Google where I sought advice from somebody about careers, and that was I assume still is, but was very often things that were talked about at Google about what move you're going to make, where are you going to go, how's it going to work. And so I encourage those. I think those conversations are very healthy to have all the time. It's a sign of strength, not weakness, if you're talking to people that you work with about how you're going to grow and evolve. And this person said to me, the way that they think about it is they write a resume, what they want their resume to look like 5 years from now, and sort of back into how they're going to get there. And I thought that was a really innovative approach. I had not heard that. And I told that to somebody else at Google who said, well, that's crazy. You don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. So if you're so set on making this plan happen, you're going to lose opportunities because you're going to have your blinders on and not think about it. And I said, well, that's a really great piece of advice. I hadn't thought of that. And so it's doing those two things kind of at once, this mashup of you should have a plan for yourself, you should have a plan for your business, you should have a plan for what you want to do. And you also have to be looking at the thing that could be right next to you that is outside of that plan, because that could end up and turn out being a lot better for you. And if you're so focused on one or the other, you're going to miss the opposite.
Very good advice. I love that advice because everybody gives you advice to have that, 1, 3, 5, 10 year plan. But that's also important. That's also important to keep your head up.
Yeah,
um,
exactly.
okay, one thing that I did want to get your insight on is the people that you manage now, because I think that's also interesting. You're managing really ultra high performance individuals. Walk me through what it's like. And I know, and I know that you manage people who probably do this well. You manage agents that manage a lot of these relationships, but you still probably have a pretty good idea of what it's like to manage some of these athletes. So, what's that like? Walk me through that.
Well, managing people that manage high performance athletes or high performance artists, whatever,
Yeah.
is these are high performing people. So yeah, it's my sort of style is pretty loose. I think if you're managing micromanaging people down to certain details, you don't trust them, you don't have the right people, back to the one of the earlier parts of our conversation, and it's just not going to work. It's not going to work for you as the manager. It's not going to work for them working. I think really what's most, you got to give people leeway and the ability to do it their way. You can't implement your way upon them. And again, have the trust and have the faith that you have the best people that will do the best work, and they shouldn't do it in the shadow of how you want it done. They should do it their way, understanding what it is and how the business works, and where they should be spending time. But I don't think you can dictate exactly how they do what they do. Now, as far as managing athletes or artists today, I really think you have to stay ahead of the curve. You've got to know what's going on in the business. Yes, some parts of being a football agent, which technically I am not, so easy for me to say, but some parts have never changed. You've got to look after the athlete. You've got to make sure they've got the right contract. You are their advisor. You are together with them. You are on the same team. Do the best deal for them. Make sure they are protected. Make sure they're happy. You need to do all that. That hasn't changed. That will not change. That's really a huge part of the business. But you've got to be understanding of what new things are happening and opportunities. I think about this with NFTs. And
Mm-hmm.
a year ago, I think, whatever the time frame was, if you had said to agents, what's your NFT strategy? It was said, NF who, right? Well, that's not in the lexicon. That's not what they do. Today, you need to be able to talk to, as an agent, you need to be able to talk to your clients, answer questions from them, bring them opportunities in the NFT space. Maybe it's not right for them for any number of reasons, but for those that are, you need to be on top of it. And it's a very new development. So staying on top of and abreast of the latest trends and how things happen. I don't have to tell you, or most likely the listeners, about how quickly things change today. That's, to me, you need to have this sense of how to represent somebody, how to look after them, how to ensure that they are giving their faith in you to help them with their career. That's a massive responsibility, and you need to take that responsibility and do your best with it. It doesn't mean it will be perfect every time, but that's a huge amount of pressure for an agent to have to look after somebody's career. But that's not it. You also need to be, say again, look around corners, understand what's coming up and what's coming new, and where opportunities are that didn't weren't available, weren't a thing some time ago, but you need to at least be open to learning about what those new things are. You don't have to be an expert in it. You can take someone with subject matter expertise to help get there, but you really do need to understand that things are changing, things are evolving. The pace at which we all live our lives is just maddening. So being on top of that stuff is really important to help bring the best opportunities to your clients.
And what do you see the future of managing personal brands? Where do you see people getting the highest ROI on certain activities when it comes to putting out social, going on tours, maybe setting up different lines of business and increasing revenue that way? What do you see these athletes really focusing on, or what's, I guess I'm just wondering, like, and what I'm trying to pull out of you here, so I'll explain what I'm trying to think through. So if somebody wants to start a personal brand, the way that I see it is an athlete is the epitome of what a personal brand could eventually be. So if we follow the trends that athletes are focused on, then perhaps somebody who wants to start their own personal brand at a much smaller scale will know where to spend their energy and time. And that's what I'm trying to understand and pull out from what you're seeing with some athletes.
I wish I had a very concise answer, but that's a complicated and good question to it. Here's what I'll say. I think it's important for athletes and non-athletes, celebrities, talent, entrepreneurs, individuals, people, started their careers wherever. One of the agents that I work with, who I have a tremendous amount of respect for, and he's an amazing guy. He always says you got to be known for something, right?
Okay.
And
all right. Yeah.
and his approach to that is, maybe you wear colorful ties, or you're very outspoken about this thing, whatever it is. He says you really should be known for something. I do think in the world today, being outspoken is important, right? It's how important is your Twitter account and your Instagram account? Well, I mean, important, but that's not it, right? I think you stand for something. You stand for a cause. You stand for a belief. You stand for whatever. That is important. The idea that an athlete is seen once a week on television, and that's their face to the world, is old-fashioned, right? I mean, their face to the world is whatever they want to tweet, whatever they want to say. I think it's important that they, if they want to, because not every athlete wants to do this. Some athletes are very happy being the best that they can be in their particular sport. But if you do want to build your brand, it's having the right message on social, standing for certain causes that you believe in, writing a book, helping to create a television show. There are some athletes that have done this exceptionally well. Not only is he a great basketball player and I think a great human being, but LeBron James has a lot of different businesses going on, and he's built this unbelievable brand for himself. He's put himself out there. I think there are lessons we can take from everybody can take for that. And you can't necessarily, as a person working in a big corporation, go start your own TV show, but you can, have your, if you feel passionately about something within the confines of whatever the organization allows, you should be, you should talk about that. You should build that. You should build that into your brand. And I think it's important for athletes, and it's important for entrepreneurs, and it's important for, people starting out and people in mid-career and later in career. There should be things that identify you. There should be, again, I'll go back to that expert in nothing, passionately curious about everything. You should be well-rounded. You should not be, so focused on one thing. That thing that you do, if you're a professional athlete and you say, I just want to focus on being an athlete, that is great, because your career is short, frankly. And there's going to be a lot of stuff that you might want to focus on later. If you're an employee at a large company, think about the other things you can take advantage of that are part of your interest. I know, join groups, whatever it might be. I think be interested in things is really, really important to building your brand.
I I do like the thing that you said that what one of your agents says about taking a stand on something, because I feel like when people put out content, they miss the point of social, which is to put your personality out there, and they turn it into like a business, like a constant stream of business content, or if you're an athlete, content about that one thing you do. But what resonates with people is personality. It's with getting to know the person, not just knowing that they're an athlete, that okay, they play for that team, or a business owner that does this one thing or sells this one product. All the most successful people in the world that have personal brands, they're raw on camera about what they believe in, and they're I would say some to a fault, but like but still they build a tribe around their convictions and their passions. And you're not going to make everyone happy, but you are going to find that tribe of people that believes in what you believe and what you do, and that to me is better than just being vanilla to everybody.
Totally agree. The only thing I will say though is, for some people it's absolutely right, for others it's not. And if that's not your thing and you're forcing it, it's not authentic, it's not going to
Yeah.
work. And so, maybe the best answer to it is, be yourself. Whatever that
Yeah.
brand is, whatever it is, really be yourself, and you'll find the tribe, or the tribe will find you, maybe equally as importantly. But if you feel like you're forcing it, then if you feel like you're forcing it, other people will most likely read through that and it won't work. So
Yeah.
if it's something
Yeah.
you want to do, be authentic about it, but don't force it.
Very good. Okay. Okay, so I want to ask some rapid fire and tee this up. I want to, before I go into the rapid fire, was there anything else? We spoke about brand. We spoke about focusing on always having the mindset of growth and digital transformation. So we covered a few good topics. Some thoughts on some really important things for our listeners, for entrepreneurs, for people that do want to either stay ahead of the curve for their business or for themselves. Was there anything else that you wanted to dive into that we didn't touch on?
I don't think so. I think we covered a lot of
Man, we
ground.
got a lot.
Yeah, yeah,
We did cover a lot of ground.
we
That's
went a
good.
lot of different places there. Yeah, no, there's
Okay, cool.
nothing specifically that I had.
Good, good. No, I just give you the floor just in case, because I know that you were
Yeah.
there was a lot of stuff that we could have gone into, so I wanted to make sure that I remember to touch on everything. Okay, so before I pivot into some rapid fire, people that want to connect with you, where would they go? What's the best social, email, website? You can drop all that so people go check you out.
Yeah, I'm not as active on social anymore, because frankly, I've been so focused uh, on my day job, and so that's where I've had the focus. If people have questions or want to reach out, Jonathan.Perelman at ICMStellar.com, JONATHAN.PERELMAN at ICMStellar.com.
Okay, perfect. Okay, let's go into some rapid fire career questions. Biggest challenge you've had in your career, what was it? How did you overcome it?
I mean, I had so many challenges. Um, I think the biggest challenge, um, I'll say, I think the biggest challenge I face is every day when you don't have, when the answer is not 100% clear, having faith in your conviction to make the best decision that you can, given all the data and information that you have on hand in your experience. You just got to, sometimes you just have to make decisions, even with a imperfect set data set, and you just got to do it. You just got to make the decision. That's leadership.
Good. One person that has been, there's probably been several, but one person that's been very impactful in your life, who was it? What did they teach you?
Been a lot of people, as I mentioned. I've got a lot of a lot of mentors and a lot of rabbis. I will say, I think the most impactful has probably been my wife, who's just, supportive and there to always listen. Doesn't always have the context how to give an answer, but will always listen and sort of keep me true to who I am. And so she probably helps me, even not understanding all the intricacies and aspects of the business, but to sort of find the right decision on things that I might be struggling with.
Amazing. Your favorite source to learn or grow could be a book, podcast, Audible, something you'd recommend people go check out.
I'm going to punt on this one too and say I don't think there's a single source. I don't think it's a single thing. I read a lot. I read stuff about the industry that I'm in. I read a lot of management books. I read history books. Foreign policy is the thing that I'm really passionate about. So I read and listen to podcasts about all that stuff. I think it's really about consuming as much information about as much stuff as possible that makes you super well-rounded.
Very good. Okay. And yes, agreed. Smart. If you could tell your 20-year-old self one thing, what would it be?
Trust the process. It's not business. Whatever you're doing is not linear. It's not a straight path. There will be ups and downs and bumps in the road, but trust the process, because you'll get there.
And last question, what does success mean to you?
Success is elusive. I thought about that. I didn't know you would ask this question, but I thought about that. I guess success to me is every moment of every day striving to be the best that you can be in whatever it is that you do. And it's something that's truly elusive. It is not, I don't know that you ever find it and reach it. I promise to have me on when I finally reach success.
When you finally reach success,
we'll do a follow-up.
When
I get there, we'll do the thing. But I think it's, constantly evolving and working and trying all as hard as you can to be the best that you can be and do as well for yourself and others. That's what really success is.
Awesome, man. That's all I got.
Cool.
Beautiful.